Awesome. Yeah, it's not hyperbole to say that this changes everything. And you guys are, and I think we, all of us, are sitting in the middle of something that we're going to look back on in 10 years and say, we were there. Like, we were in all of these relationships we built, all of these cool people that we met, all of the builders and all of the early people that you actually got to talk to and interact and create this. Will from Damas is in the room. It's crazy what we're actually building and what's happening and how it changes the future of what it means to be human. It's just absolutely staggering. I pinch myself every day that I get to be a part of this community and what's happening. So most people know this kind of, and it's really simple premise that seems hard because we update our mental models with new information and we try to make the new information fit what we believe, versus actually interrogating what's actually happening and looking at a first principle level. So most people here realize my frame of the world, and my frame of the world, which I try to disprove all the time, but keeps on, nothing is surprising. It's true. If you read my book, everything that I read in my book, everything I wrote about in my book is just happening at a speed that's exactly as it predicted. And all this subsequent things that are happening on the other side of that system are happening as well. And so it's reinforcing that mental model of the world. And that mental model of the world is really quite simple. Prices fall to the marginal cost of production, period. No matter what. You can regulate an industry, just try to stop it for a short term. And that regulation moves that industry to a different place in the world, which attacks that industry from the different place in the world. But over a long enough time horizon, prices fall to the marginal cost of production. That is why your calculator app on your phone is free. It's why your photos are free. It's why everything's moving to free. And that does not show up in GDP. So when you're mismeasuring GDP and you're trying to push GDP up to try to pay back insolvent debt, there's less and less things to push up. Well, that continues, and it accelerates. One path accelerates the other. In fact, that path, prices falling the marginal cost of production, exponentially moving on all things, with artificial intelligence moving. You can feel this. I cannot believe people are walking through life looking at this and not being able to see what's happening. And that system, so the debt is growing, or the manipulation of the system is growing in response to the technology trying to drive prices down. So in other words, trying to drive abundance to you. But we're so trapped in that system that we can't see that abundance should flow to us. Like, why do you not pay for the air in this room? It's for the same reason. Why do you not pay? So could we tax robots so that prices don't fall to their marginal cost of production? Could we do all of these stupid things to live in our existing system that just works because of manipulation? The $400 trillion of debt in the world is already insolvent. What most people in Bitcoin are doing is not paying for it anymore. That whole thing is going to be repriced by Bitcoin. And people that are stepping out of that system, at the same time as the system is essentially putting cages, locks on the door to keep you in to a raging inferno, we have an open monetary system that allows any single person on the planet to get out of the cage. And so we can expect all of the things to happen next out of the system, all of the FUD, the noise, the misinformation, all of the things are just totally predictable. And we could spend our time yelling at it, making it stronger, or we could spend our time moving our energy to the new system. So I've chosen to move my energy to the new system. And when you know that, you also feel empathy for what other people are going through. Because we all have friends, we all have family that don't get Bitcoin yet, right? We all have people in our lives that don't get Bitcoin. And if this was going to happen in an instant, then every single person in Argentina and Turkey and Venezuela would already be Bitcoiners. Why aren't they? Right? Why aren't they? Because people get stuck in their system, prices revalue, everything else, and they believe again, and they forget what just happened, and now their labor is way cheaper, and business moves back to take advantage of that cheap labor, and they forget what just happened, that they got their pocket picked, and they do it all again. So this is going to happen in waves. It's going to happen in waves. It's likely not going to be hyper-Bitcoinization all the time. It's just, but if you're living in the right system, you're not measuring price go up. You're measuring all prices falling against Bitcoin forever. That's what's happening. And so, does it feel like you're getting wealthier? Yes, you're getting wealthier. Is the world getting better? Is that fix the system? But you could only measure what's happening from a new system that operates that, instead of a manipulated system that operates the other way. But why I say I have empathy is, for me, maybe I'm autistic. I need to know when something doesn't work. I chase that all the way to the ground, so far to the ground. So I know how the existing monetary system works all the way to the ground, and all of the intricacies and how that works, and the unintended consequences all around the world, and how people feed into it and make choices into it that make it worse, how they yell at it, make it worse. I also know how Bitcoin works all the way to the ground. But most people deliver their value on top of those systems. And it's early in Bitcoin, and the value exchange on top of Bitcoin is just being developed by many of the people in this room. And all of the entrepreneurs trying to build on the new rails of commerce that are going to deliver value more simply to the world at large, and more people will walk across that bridge because it'll be obvious to them. But when you're living in the life that my house is going up, everything's good, got a raise last year, and inflation is 2%, you don't even question all these things. I'm only losing 2%. It doesn't feel like, because you feel like you're winning. Then it goes up to 5%, 10%. You start to question these things. Most people stay stuck, though, in this. You probably, if you've listened to any of my podcasts, you probably heard the bigger system that we live in. All we are is energy, storage, and compute. And our life is searching for more energy, sort of limited energy. So we're limited energy, limited storage, limited compute. That's what your brain is. Searching for more energy, storage, and compute. And giant phase changes in society is when one of those things or two of those things allow us to move our brains. So that's when we moved our brains into books. Massive global increase in wealth, because we're living on top of all of those ideas, and that we can push those ideas back, and now those ideas add for more storage, add unlimited storage, and we compute on what other people said and error correct on that. And then that is connected around the world through trust and money, because we are all a little part of everyone else's world. We're all connected, everyone in the world. And just think through that. So it's a supercomputer connected through trust and money. Bigger cities, more people, more trust. Bigger cities with no trust and money, supercompute doesn't work. They don't look like that. So if you break the bonds of money that hold the supercomputer together through trust, my labor is okay because if I do this, somebody else is going to do their part, and we all win. That breaks when you break money. And any one of those levers we're searching for through storage are giant phase changes of society. More energy and coal, let's say, drove the British Empire. Higher forms of energy times storage and compute as that transitioned to oil, drove the US empire. More energy, better energy, higher form of energy times the same compute. It all breaks down if you lose the thing that holds it together, which is the trust and money. And it always has through the world. So all that's happening today is we're moving to the next level. Computers are doing that better than us. We're moving the storage to computers, and computers are computing better than us. And our intelligence in itself is error correction. We take for granted that all of the shoulders that we've stood on top of, that we don't have to think about every day anymore. It's all gone before us, error correcting, and now we're on top of that, making that better. And now computers are doing that. I would just say as a side, I'm very deep on where AI is going. I was at a conference last night with actually a local, probably one of the leaders in the space, building artificial general intelligence and robots. The robots are already in stores, providing tasks where you can say, not just pack a box, go and operate the store effectively. So it'll decide when to unload pallets, it'll decide when to be a cashier, it'll decide. So imagine a supercomputer, like a supercomputer AI system that is far cheaper than any labor that you could do, that's going to be able to automate. No, that's not available right now. It's still probably $100 an hour, but marginal cost of production, it falls, and within a couple of years, that'll be $5 an hour. But it won't need a rest break, won't need a coffee break, won't ask for union fees, and so that is the future. It could scare you. It should scare you if you're living in the existing system, trying to make prices go up against that, because there's physically is impossible without complete centralized control. But that is in our future, and we drive economic resources to drive that down to make our time more efficient. It's just we cannot. That won't work in an existing system that has to rob that time from us. One quick thing, and this is there's I think a false belief by those really deep in the Bitcoin community that everybody else knows, including the big money and everything else. And we had a call at Ego Death recently by a couple $100 billion fund. And if you imagine giant funds, they have analysts and teams of researchers and everything else, and they would be specialists in fields. And inside their fund, they have specialists in crypto, right? And for the longest time, because of the manipulation of the system and the confusion in the system, it was a one-way ticket. They were the stars of the firm, and everybody was winning. And what the stars, they self-reinforce a bias. They don't look outside their bias, and so we have to be careful of the same thing. They self-reinforce their bias, and they think they know what they're doing, and then the whole thing gone, and they're in panic mode because who invests in those funds? All the pension funds and all so it's just a giant stack of money, all based on the same thing, and it's being liquidated in real time. And what do? They reach out to us. Why did they reach out to us, and why did they reach out to me specifically? They said, we think you're the only person who will tell us the truth on what's happening. And so now you've built a relationship, and we'll see, but they're going to be all in on Bitcoin. They're going to understand at the first principle level why this happens. So as this develops, there's a wall of money coming. There's a wall of money coming to where the world's going. And it's super exciting because that wall of money is going to be attracted to the top entrepreneurs and all of the people that are building the rails, and that'll happen faster. And it's just logical that it would, but it's also logical why they would get trapped in their own belief system, driven by a manipulated system that reinforces what they believe. So the one last thing before we go to questions is something I've been, and I think this started with my wife and I in COVID. And so we've traveled the last 2 years all over the world, and because of what I'm about to say. We were living, and my wife was kind of in the news about COVID all the time. Remember those days, what it looked like? Everybody was talking about COVID. And it was dark, it was so painful, and I just couldn't do that anymore. What was worse is the hypocrisy that she had, that every one of my friends had, and we didn't live like most people lived in COVID. We still had lots of friends, and so I won't say that. It's but we weren't locked down the same. But every friend I knew talked about somebody else breaking a COVID rule, nonstop. Well, they themselves broke a COVID rule, and I got so angry about the hypocrisy of it, and I said to my wife, I said, I will not live like this. We're gonna make a different choice, because people can do whatever they want, but you can't say one thing and then do the other. It just drives me crazy, and that left that sent us off on a crazy great adventure around the world. Family super close. It's awesome. Now, then I realized what I was doing in Bitcoin. In Bitcoin, I was talking to you like this, and I had a bunch of wealth parked over in Bitcoin. I was talking about the world that was coming. I knew very well all the next steps, and 90% of my time was in the existing system. And it made me realize I'm a hypocrite too, because how could I want the world to change with 90% of my time? I'm just holding an asset, trying to protect myself, and all my time and energy, boards, everything else, were in the existing system. I was talking a good game, but I wasn't doing it. And so that's why we started Ego Death. That's actually why I specifically moved off other boards. I gave up other things and moved all my time into the world that I wanted to create. And when I say all my time, 90% of my time is now, it's flipped. And I think about Bitcoin first, and I think about that standard and all of the things that are happening, and spend all my time with the greatest entrepreneurs in there. And I can tell you, after doing it, it feels like a risk. It feels like, okay, well, these jobs, these boards, everybody wants me, they're paying me fortune and everything else. It felt like, okay, well, what am I going to do over here? It was the best thing ever. It's the same thing as Bitcoin. It's an asymmetric bet on your time. And when you're doing that, your time explodes. So can you imagine if every holder of Bitcoin today, instead of just held it, started spending it and replacing it? Imagine imagine every time you tried to, a business didn't take it, and then the next person in the room in that business said, hey, do you take Bitcoin? The next person did, and two more later on did. And all of a sudden, what do you think the businesses would do? So we all matter. Every single one of us matters in creating this. And the faster we start taking actions in it, the faster the world's going to change. So with that, I'm going to leave it to you guys for questions, and we can take this however long you want. Yeah.
How has your definition of success changed from the old system to working in the new system?
So the question was, how has your definition of success changed? Mine hasn't. Honestly, it was always the same. I never cared about money. I never looked up to money. I never looked down to people without money. I literally didn't care. I wanted, what my measure of success would be, so I'm super curious. My measure of success is a reflection of the success of those around me, is probably the best way I could say, and it's actually always been. He lives up at Cultus, so he knows all my friends up at Cultus and everything. So, but it's always looked like that. Yeah.
Do you think for the mining industry, say, the big mining companies?
So, I think one of the things that is going to happen, so the incentives for mining create an incentive for smaller miners to be able to compete against the big miners. So the only thing driving the bigger miners is access to capital, right? And as new machines come on with higher and different forms and different ideas of energy, it actually breaks that. That's actually why there's this boom and bust cycle in mining, because mining is counter-cyclical, right? And so what people do is they drive into mining as a race to get more money, and they get flushed out on the other side of it. I think what's going to happen, what's going to happen, just because the free market will take us there, is there's going to be companies that are going to create really easy plugins for mining, that you can do yourself, and there's going to be integration to energy all over the world that you can do yourself, and it'll distribute it more. I think that's what's going to happen. Yeah.
So there's so many rabbit holes in Bitcoin, and the one that I find most interesting around is the positive change and the financial and the good it gives the environment. There's lots of different companies doing stuff, whether it's using green or gridless, battery energy. Through this lens, what is the most exciting thing you see about Bitcoin in the environment?
Okay. Did everyone hear that? Okay, so the environmental, the change, and I suspect that means everybody's talking about Bitcoin being bad for the environment. It couldn't be further from the truth. It's the only thing that could save the environment, because at the highest level, it's this, and for the life of me, I can't understand why people don't get this. So it's actually nuts. So at the highest level, growing forever on a finite planet by manipulating currency, how could that be good for the environment, right? Like, so it's absolutely impossible. So the thing that's bad, inflation equals climate change, you could say. It is the cause of, whether you believe in climate change, put it this way, whether you believe in climate change or don't believe in climate change, what is the best way to attack the people who do believe in climate change? Is it better to say climate change is a psyop, or is it better to say, how do you solve climate change through a system that must grow forever by printing more monetary units? Right? Which one would work better? That's actually why I don't get involved in that type of debate. Prices falling to the marginal cost of production. The reason why your calculator is free is because the first calculator on your phone costs money. The next person came in and created the next one for $4, and then $3, and then $2, and whether there's 1 penny of profit, there will be an entrepreneur trying to take that profit somewhere in the world, and then it goes to free, and then the entrepreneurs go to another industry. They go try to attack the next thing, and they go to try to attack the next thing. The natural evolution of the world is those prices should flow to us, that productivity should flow to us through falling prices, and then you don't need the money because it's free. Just like you don't need the money to pay for the most valuable resource in the world right now, the air you breathe right now. It all looks like that in time because of that. But if you stop that from happening, right? So productivity, here's the crazy, productivity means prices go down. Yet you have an entire world telling you, we're gonna drive productivity and make prices go up. It's ludicrous. That's climate change, right? Because both sides, your employment, which you need more and more money to be employed, so you're gonna vote for higher and higher wages, get employed, so you can purchase more things, right? Is all a self-referential loop out of a base that you can't see. That is the entire thing that people are worried about in climate change, and there is no solve, because we're too self-interested to solve that. If somebody said to you what I'm saying, that's actually why Bitcoin's so, if a politician said to you, hey, your wages are gonna go down next year, but your real wages are gonna go up. In other words, prices are gonna fall faster than your wages go down, the opposite to this system, you would laugh them out of the room, and be honest, right? Bitcoiners would laugh them out of the room too, because the system doesn't work that way. So in other words, we want to hear a lie. We want to hear that politicians say, oh, it's okay, we'll print money for this, we'll make money for this, and we'll vote for that politician, knowing they're lying, right? On a system based of that. And then, so what Bitcoin does is it chases abundant energy. Now you have an economic incentive to chase abundant energy that builds a free market system to do it. In BC right now, what was it, 5 years ago, Site C Dam was developing to pay for the Site C dam because of all of the additional power that was coming in from the mills and everything else that they required to be able to plug into BC Hydro. They cut them off. All of those private dams, they cut them off, and they said, we're no longer paying for your power. They stranded them. Right? Abundant energy, right? They stranded them. Why? Because price would have gone negative on power, and they couldn't pay for Site C dam. So now extrapolate that. Why is Africa right now have a whole bunch of orphaned towns and because it takes the money and the capital to centralize that. And then if you apply pricing pressure, prices come down and it doesn't work, right? So now from the bottom up, Gridless and other companies can solve it from the bottom up, bringing abundant energy where it couldn't happen before. You have this radical. That won't be exponential like technology, but it'll feel exponential from a free market force chasing abundant energy. Because now there's a market incentive to chase abundant energy. It's staggeringly positive for the planet. Staggeringly positive. Yeah.
Yeah, you talked about getting all of us to use Bitcoin as a way to encourage mass adoption. So, what would your advice be to a merchant? Given the volatility of Bitcoin, what would your advice be to a merchant who has to price, his product in Bitcoin? Would he have to, change the price, on a daily basis or a weekly basis? What's your view on that?
Yeah. So it's a good question. Would like a coffee merchant, what would they do in this? But when you realize so I think you would change more often because it's happening, because your coffee would get really expensive and nobody would shop at your coffee shop anymore, right? But I think you would just constantly drive that, and you would often, if you offered an option and you knew that, and Bitcoiners were all spending in that would be figured out pretty quickly, right? So, but remember, in Bitcoin, prices are falling, so it's the opposite. The volatility is normally in favor for you. The sats you collect are going to be more valuable forever. So in other words, you could be wrong on the trade in the short term, but because your money isn't losing value every day, you're right in the long term. I would be doing it everywhere. I am doing it everywhere. I would be doing it everywhere. And little things, like just imagine how many people you interact with and everything else that are starting to get this. It doesn't take much to start moving this a lot. Network effects on anything typically happen regionally. Let's say in Vancouver, big city, and they typically happen in smaller. Big city, there's one place that takes Bitcoin, and nobody goes there. That place will stop taking Bitcoin, right? So you need a critical mass of different businesses that start to do it. It could be even on a street, and then everybody that goes, oh wow, they do it, and it starts to spread, and that network effect takes off. Yeah. Yep.
There that you talked about, and maybe I got it wrong, is that the deflationary pressures of the advancement in technology are going to come up against the inflationary pressures of the system. Maybe I got that wrong, but
yeah.
What did you mean by that? Because essentially,
so that's what I was just saying. So deflation, prices falling to the marginal cost of production, is deflationary. Exponentially, so if you just take AI where it is today, and then remember, ChatGPT came out 5 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, Auto ChatGPT came out. Has anybody played with it? Play with it. It will blow your mind on what the entire history, like all human history, is in there, making decisions and everything else. And you can ask it a question, and it will think, and then, oh, what about all the other questions that you needed to ask? And it'll keep doing all of that work for you because it's querying all the other knowledge. Then it's thinking, wait, you didn't ask this. What about this? What about this? It's staggering, the power. What that'll do is, for the people that are using it first, they will have an advantage in their businesses or personally. And that advantage will mean that there's less jobs required to do that work. So if you had $100 and now the entire, that now took $80, and the person that was doing it took most of that, or the business that was doing it took most of it, and everybody else was left out because they became useless, sorry, then if you knew that, you would take the advantage, right? So if you just want to do that, go do that. Go learn that, but then the next person from you, and as this advances, is going to do the next thing to you, right? And so the $80 will turn into $60, $40, and everything else, and it'll keep fighting itself all the way down. The cause of inflation and the cause of manipulation of money is actually that, right? Because the existing system, if you let prices fall, the $400 trillion of debt in the world becomes insolvent like that. And if it became insolvent like that, and the counterparty risk all over the world, that counterparty risk unwinds immediately. You'd go to the grocery store, the entire supply chain behind the grocery store, there would be no food on the shelves. You go to the bank, it'd be closed. It would turn into a barter world, a really ugly world immediately. And that's why governments can't stop. They have to, at some point, manipulate money because they don't actually have a choice. And so no matter who you are in that system, because of a greater power of efficiency, the cause of all of that manipulation is more and more. And then people are yelling at Powell or this, and these people don't know what they're doing. It doesn't actually matter. It's all theater. It's too late. There's nothing they can do to change what I'm talking about. And there's an incentive for every single person on the planet to move faster into AI. And while you're moving faster into AI, what you're actually doing is training the AI with your knowledge to get better than you. And that's going to merge with robots, and it's going to do all jobs. I mean all jobs. And so why shouldn't food be free if a robot can make food and do, or almost free, if a robot can do all of the work that a human can do in a way better? So all of these things that we have a concept for that are priced, and they're rising in price, that concept of price is only because it's being manipulated by a manipulation of money. Abundance in money equals scarcity everywhere in the world. Scarcity in the world equals abundance.
You still have deflationary pressures from the advancement of technologies, but they're not as quick as the inflationary pressures of the expansion of the monetary policy. And I think in your book, you talk about the inflationary pressures and the deflationary pressures basically colliding.
Here's the point. So the free market, there is no inflation. There never has been. There isn't any. It's an illusion. The only reason there's inflation is because we grant some people powers to manipulate a base of money, period.
So I get that, but I think when you said that both are going to collide to the point where the deflationary pressure is going to take over, are you saying that the advancement in technology is going to happen so quick, it's going to become almost like an S-curve?
That's what's happening right now. So that window, that's why I said, like, you read the book on AI and human intelligence is error correction. And I talked about all of these things in the book. What's just happening right now, right? And because people look at this, if you look at the trend, and if you look at the AI where it was 10 years ago, and look where it was 20 years ago, where I wrote about and where the trend will be, it's just an exponential trend. And so follow the trend. Where will it be? But people are looking at a movie. People are actually literally walking outside. Listen to people on TV, surprised that they're walking outside in their bathing suit from the summer and it's winter. What happened? Right? And they're not predicting the future. They're predicting the present. Right? Over and over and over. And we listen to them over and over, and they're wrong every time. They're always wrong. And then we listen to them the next time. Kramer. It's just all these talking heads. It's just so nonsense. They're predicting the present, all of them, everything. and so think about the trend in AI, and do you think the trend is going to stop? It hasn't stopped for the last 50 years. Same as Moore's law, hasn't stopped. That trend is persistent. So when you look out at the movie at the AI now and it scares you or puts you in a fear thought or gives you an opportunity, either way, on both sides of that, look at the trend of where it'll be a month from now, a year from now, and it'll blow your mind because the trend is accelerating so much, and that trend has a massive implication because our minds don't change that fast. Our minds are looking at the old world and they're biased to all of the other things that we've always known and our grandparents knew. We read a book, How Gold Worked in 1942, and oh, that's the way the world's gonna look. So our minds are biased by the past, and we don't update our models very fast, and the trend is the trend changes all of that, and there's nothing that's gonna change that. Yeah. So why I said, and so again, you know how I think about this. I hope over time I can just move to the back. Nobody needs to talk about Jeff Booth but right now I have a voice in Bitcoin, right? And so I use that voice to try to encourage others to be able to do that, and hopefully others will take that and say, I'm going to do it too. I'm going to do it too, and I'm going to do it too. Larry Leopard said to me. Similarly, he goes, I didn't get what you said until you said, what are you doing, right? Why aren't you doing it? And then every cab I'm in, I pay people all over the world in Bitcoin. I talk to them. We have a really good conversation. I feel like I'm making a difference. And so it just takes that cascading across. I can't make anybody do anything. I can just tell them what I'm doing. Other people can say, why not? Like today, in the future, you will only be able to create a value on Bitcoin by providing value to others, right? The only way. Today, you can buy more Bitcoin and replace it. So today, advance the system you want to see by buying more Bitcoin and replacing it.
But you understand like that kind of cognitive dissonance that people go through in that moment, like they're spending the things that they're trying to stack to preserve their wealth for their.
So it's why I told you about my own hypocrisy. That's why I said, because I can see it in myself too, right? I can see how I could do the same thing and then change and then realize, yeah, I did it too. And then how could I, 2 minutes after I did that, look at other people and say, what are you doing, right? So because you know how Bitcoin, the rabbit hole is so deep, and once you get it, you look at the rest of the crazy world we live in and you go, how can't you see it? When you yourself couldn't see it 2 years ago, and you think you always knew it, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, I think it's that cognitive dissonance in ourselves, right? That we think everybody knows what we know. So I just honest with what I did know at one time, what I know now, and try to improve every day. Yeah. Okay, so government regulating Bitcoin, and is it possible? Let's start that with Operation Choke Point, right? And what's happening right now. Effectively, you have a system built on manipulation that cannot be solvent without more manipulation, and a whole bunch of people telling you, we're gonna lock the doors so you can't get out of the manipulation. You should be screaming at people it should be screaming at people with a loudspeaker, get out of the burning fire, get out of the house as fast as you can. And some people will stay stuck in the burning building, right? And they're going to get wiped out. Will there be more crackdown? Absolutely. What Will here in Damas is doing, and okay, and what Damas is doing is think through the second order effects. People are really bad at thinking through second, third, fourth derivative effects. They think about their personal needs right now. It's why we vote for a system that constantly gets worse when we can't see the greater impact. Think about the second order effects of communication channels being controlled by effectively artificial intelligent agents that could make you think whatever you want. Right? So if people can deceive you and make you think inflation is necessary for a productive economy, and there might be people in this room that believe that, and without asking the next question, saying theft is required for a productive economy, right? We don't vote for it, right? And then without asking, what would the mere reflection of that economy look like if theft was the base layer of all of our interactions? Who would win, who would lose? So there's people that don't go to that depth to ask that. And that means that the next step of what happens is governments have to not just try to close the doors to Bitcoin, they have to close the doors to the communication channels. They have to consolidate the communication channels. And so what will happen? Hey, Megs. What will happen is an executive order will go to Microsoft saying, we don't want GitHub saying, allowing this type of technology, close that repository, just like it happens in China, right? All of those things are going to happen. They're absolutely going to happen, even in the US and Canada and everything else. And people are going to be locked in, deluded, over and over that the system they live in is right. Some people will fight it, and some people will fight it, and as they fight it, rise up and fight it, and make that system stronger. Imagine marching on Wall Street and breaking a whole bunch of windows and everything else, and you burn the city down. You go home, and a whole bunch of magic money appears to rebuild the city. You strengthen that system, right? And so all of these things that people are doing inside that system are reinforcing it. And you have people like Will. You have people that are building on. Yeah. But that's what, yeah. So you can't just have Bitcoin. Bitcoin is native to Nostr, and Nostr is changing the communication channels, and that isn't just for clients like Damus or clients like Astral or any other clients that look like Twitter clients. It's for everything, and so you're going to have decentralized information where you have control and nobody can shut that off. And it's almost a race of that path against a centralized entity. That's actually the fight that humanity is fighting. This will win. It's natural that it's going to win, but it's going to be really bumpy along the way. So things like Nostr are critically important, and not just yeah. Yep. Yeah.
We take a step back and so I believe that you're right that there's two opposing forces. We have deflationary forces and then inflationary forces. But where I struggle is what does this hyper Bitcoinized world look like, and what are the benefits of living in a deflationary world? Doesn't it reduce productivity?
No, it increases it. So, perfect. There's a lot of people in this audience that have been following me for a long time that could answer that question, but I'll do. So real estate is priced where it is because it's a store of value against the existing system. It's not priced as a utility like it would be in this new system. It won't be. So what that does is it extracts wealth from others. Inflation is wage deflation. So the people that get rich in real estate because money is being manipulated. If you watch the rate of growth of real estate, it is exactly the same as the rate of growth in money supply. Exactly the same, mirrors it. And so people, and why they're putting in real estate is they're trying to stop their money from losing value. And then they can get that rent and they extract wealth from the people that are losing value the most because they can't afford rent. So this system works to concentrate, the system we're in works to concentrate. It used to be if you were in the 1%, you were good. Now, if you're now 1%, if you're in the 1%, you're starting to, it feels, I can't get there. You gotta be in the 0.1%. And if you look at the 0.1% versus everyone else, it's been just a massive theft of productivity to the 1% and big government to be able to, so when Elizabeth Warren on $150,000 a year can have $60 million, how does that mathematically happen? Like there's, no, it's exactly the opposite. It's exactly the opposite. Will runs a company, Damas. All of Damas is one person. One person. Yeah, two people. Yeah. But so all of that value that people are using, tons of value, connection and everything else. Twitter takes thousands of people to do the same job. This takes one. That's technology. That's what it does. It pushes that. That's productivity flowing to you. Twitter is productivity flowing to Elon Musk, right? That's the existing system. And so we look at people like that and we say, wow, are they smart? Okay, so, yeah, so, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing, but I can't. Yeah. I can't imagine. I can't. Okay. I can't imagine the human condition. Yeah, that's okay. And take it deeper than that, because your question was deeper. That what do I do when thing? Yeah, okay, so why this is hard? Why this is hard for you is why it's hard for everybody. So in 1999 or 1998, I still remember this same conversation with Amazon. And in Amazon, there were a group of people that would say it won't work forever. It won't work. There was a group of people that said Amazon, when Amazon works, then all the grocery stores will close and there'll be no place to shop. And so if you were an executive at Amazon from 1995 to 2010, your world just got better and better and better and life got easier. If you're an executive at Sears, your world got harder and harder and harder. That is a company example of a phase transition, describing the exact same world. When Sears closed in approximately 2010, were there riots on the street, or did anybody care, right? We moved our energy to the new system, and we wouldn't have moved our energy to the new system unless it benefited us. And when it benefited us more and the other one collapsed, nobody cared. That's what's happening in Bitcoin. People that are moving their energy to the new system are seeing an incredibly bright future. People that are moving their energy to Bitcoin and Nostr and everything else, and they're seeing all of this influence, and it's building faster and faster, and other things are building because of it. And that energy, that's why it's so exciting. And people that are living in this old world and saying, "What will I do?" are going to get hurt, right? That's the point, because it's ending anyways. Sears was going to end anyways because something made it more efficient. The existing monetary system, as we know it, is going to end anyways, because this is going to make it more efficient. And every single person on the planet has an open door to decide when they want to come over.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
I just want to answer your question, because I think your concern is like, look, if everyone just has all this time, what do you do? And really, I think, is that kind of what you're getting at? Is
Well,
we have
it's
a
part of it.
inflationary system. Yeah, I just think we're, like, if food is free, then why, like, who's serving you?
Garden art revolution.
If everything is free,
everything is free,
and everyone has a lot of money,
that's-
and as things would get cheaper, I think each of us, but the thing is, remember, all the inputs, why is food expensive? Why does it cost money? You gotta have a truck driver, transport food, you gotta have someone plant food, grow food, so all that, the marginal cost of all that stuff. So food gets really
You're making energy more expensive to make gas more expensive, and the transition cost, all of it is caused by more.
ultimately we end up with a lot more free time, and we get to decide what we want to do with that time. But you need to find some way of producing value to society, at least some of the time, to be able to have some sort of income, to be able to sustain you in this world. Is that
Yeah.
kind
Does
of-
it cost more to create an egg than it did 50 years ago? Right? It's more efficient. Does it cost more to find energy than it did 50 years ago? Does it cost more to all of these things? The
A lot of people seem to have a lot of free time on Twitter and stuff, and the world is not.
so okay, but that's actually a really good call. Why is that? So let's at first principles describe that. Why is nobody doing jobs and everything else? Because the government is expanding at a crazy rate to pay them to stay home. And so we don't have a productive society. We have a totally manipulated society, and people are finding themselves losing touch. Humans will always find new things to do. I'm not I don't actually believe that it takes us to utopia. I believe that it takes us to a sound economic principle that we find that way bigger challenges to solve. That's what I believe.
I won't quote you on this, but this is the singularity, which is,
Yeah.
we're here.
So the singularity, as Ray Kurzweil talks about it, and he would talk about it as, again, most of my technology friends haven't put together what the same technology does in the existing system. So the follow-up is, this is the singularity if we allow the transition, and it probably destroys humanity if we don't, honestly.
Sure, so is Bitcoin like the transitory piece to that?
Yeah, it's a transition path to allow us to, even if you just think about expanding ourselves into the stars, we can't travel very far in these meat sacks, right? We will probably be integrated with machines in time, and expand that way. You could not like that, right? That might not be appealing to your, but it's still likely inevitable at some point. Because if you just think about what we are, right? When I said limited energy, limited storage, and the algorithms that define your brain and make you, we live in a constructed reality, each of us, that we see our own belief system in a mirrored back at us, right? And that belief system is literally informed by a bunch of neurons that are electrical signals hitting your biological computer that inform that, and it's moving to computers. Yeah. So okay, perfect. In time, we might not. In time, to carry that conversation, we might not. So the question was, if machines are doing all the work and every single thing falls to the marginal cost of production, like the air here, then why do we need money? And everyone's getting richer because all of the abundance is flowing to us through that process. Why do we need money in the first place? And because everything falls, the human condition wouldn't allow this to happen. So right now you guys are talking about a far future, right? Maybe a 20, 50, 100-year future with no path to get there. Bitcoin is the path to get there. And what it'll look like over time is Bitcoin will be distributed because people will sell at different prices. People will, in the Bitcoin system versus the other system, if you tried to create essentially a standing army and rent seek or take power, what that means is you're distributing your Bitcoin, right? Unless you're producing more value for other society measured by them, it means you're distributing your Bitcoin. If you're living beyond what you're providing value to other people, all connected all over the world, it means you're distributing your Bitcoin. So it naturally distributes versus today naturally consolidating. Yeah.
I know that Michael Saylor recently put a Bitcoin address to an email address.
Yeah.
As a Bitcoin VC guy, can you tell us some alpha on what other things like that? Just the other technology?
Yeah, I can. This, there are so many things, and again, in some of the things we'll be wrong on too, so I just don't want to bias this with just our portfolio or pump up our portfolio at the expense of others. But one of the ones I'm super excited about is Fedi. If you see what they're doing, I got to play with this app with Jack and Costa Rica and freedom activists had flown in from all over the world, like people that are just the worst living conditions what they're dealing with and don't know technology. They were able to set up a Fedi federation within 7 minutes and be trading sats on or bearer instrument eCash, even without internet, within seven minutes. Complete privacy tech, federated. It looks like a federated operating system. So it looks like Apple, but completely federated to everyone. So anybody can build to it, and it distributes to everybody as a matter of fact, and it's completely private. And so this is sitting on top of Bitcoin and uses Rails, and then interoperability from that to Lightning so it allows you to scale Lightning at the rate we need to scale Lightning. It allows you to do a custody. If you can self-custody and do you should still self-custody. Shouldn't use it. But for the 90% of people that don't self-custody, 95% of people that self-custody and leave their coins on exchanges, it takes away that risk, and it automates that whole process and really through a way that is gold standard for doing so. So I'm super excited. I think that literally could bring on billions of people to Bitcoin. And when I say billions of people into Bitcoin, I'm not talking about 10 years from now. I'm talking about 3 years from now. It's coming. It's coming. You'll see a lot more of it this year, and it's going to roll out in stages. But it's already trialing in communities, and people are like, it's crazy valuable. All of these things. They're all because it's all of these things are native to the protocol. It's easy to plug and play. That's why Zaps is a Nostr. It's just click, 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 and all of a sudden, wait. There's people in Nostr that never knew about Bitcoin. Wait, I can get paid that fast, and I can create value. And you start to, and that interoperability, because there's not walled gardens, explodes growth. So Fedi is one that I'm super excited about. Breeze doing, I think one of the risk places, including in Nostr, is custodial solutions, custodial wallets, because right now they're easier. So people use Wallet of Satoshi, people use, and some really good ease of use onboarding, but then people stay there. And that becomes, if they get too big, the governments will attack vector those, and that for sure. And but because they're easier, it's hard. People gravitate to them. Breeze is doing exactly the opposite. They're building an SDK, a non-custodial solution, so anybody can build non-custodial wallets from this SDK so that Bitcoin can grow in the way that it should in non-custodial way. Super excited about that. Like, lots to be excited about in what we're doing, and lots to be excited about in the whole ecosystem. I can't believe, that's what I can't believe I get to do when I said I changed my time from over here to over here, and you see an abundance of all of this stuff. You see an abundance of all these incredible entrepreneurs. Some are going to not make it. Some aren't. Some are going to miss the first time, learn, do it the second time. But it's inevitable. And and I won't say what I'm going to say because because it's being live recorded. But I won't say it specifically. But if you're trying to chase what Bitcoin core and you can't stop that, can you imagine trying to stop what's coming? Impossible. What's coming is a revolution.
So as a Bitcoiner on the forefront of adoption, do you expect more hostility from out of that heat? And if so, what are the actual things that you expect?
So you'll notice, so do you expect more conflict from the powers that be and what's happening? You'll notice that one of the things I do personally is I try to limit my attack surface. Is that fair? Right? And because I know most people don't know, including in the system, they don't know, and they think that they might think that this is evil tech and everything else. So I just try to limit my attack vector or surface and talk in the positive all the time. Would I admit that there's some very evil people inside the system? Yes, of course, But I'd say most are just an incentive system that reinforces on itself and reinforces it. So I talk about it that way instead of giving the people, because if I lean into those people, what they do is Jeff wears a tinfoil hat, and I get excluded, and I can't have the same voice. So I do it strategically, because what's coming, that wall of what's coming, we've just started to see the fight, right? We've just started to see the fight. There's lots more. There's lots more coming. It can't stop it, and so I don't. If you think about Bitcoin in the long term, you could care less. It's just all of these things. Bitcoin's anti-fragile. It's getting, and as a system based on truth and a system based on lies. And as the system tells more lies, more people see the truth. And so it expands and you can see what's happening just in interactions. You see New York Times put something out on Bitcoin mining and everything else, and they get schooled. Like the amount of traffic. You see Greenpeace put out something on this. They get schooled, and it turns into a meme as a joke, and the whole world sees the thing that they're trying to use lies to be able to break. And so that gets, you can imagine, that's why the next step has to be stop communication channels, decide who gets to say what. It has to, and they have to, and so that's why some of the counterpoints, what Nostr is doing, what Will's doing, all of those people, they're rebuilding that infrastructure on decentralized rails.
Are we, to follow up on that?
Yeah.
I think we're heading this, like, I fear that this is a battle that's going to happen, counter move, right? And do we end up, is there a risk of ending up some sort of dystopian hellscape where we are the bad people running around?
Yes.
Shadow tech.
So yes. So let's play, and I always think in probabilities rather than absolutes, right? But so let's play that edge case as a probability. Let's play the edge case that every single government agrees and bans Bitcoin, right? That's what I mean. It's such an edge case, right? Right. So if that happened, there would be some governments that would accept it because it would drive. So it's actually not a very, but let's deal with that edge case that everyone does. And there's all this, there's this they can't close all the nodes, they can't do it, there's nothing that can stop that. It'll keep, what it would happen is a giant underground economy would build faster, right? where people would trade faster, and it would grow and grow and grow, and all the privacy tech on top of it, like Fedi, and so would explode, and you would have, just like what happens in third world areas where you have a black market for cash, it would, and that becomes the primary market, right? That's what would happen to Bitcoin. It would actually probably accelerate the growth globally. And then, and that would cause, and I'm using the edge case, right? I'm using the worst edge case. And that would cause some governments to say, I need to accept this. I need to go now. So that's probably the worst case. So could it happen? Could it happen to you in one region? Could it happen in Canada? Could. So you need to, I retain flexibility. So looking at another passport, looking at, and specifically the whole truckers thing for me was a signal that even in Canada, where I think there's a free market and there's not, and how 70% of the population will essentially go against me because I'm speaking for freedom of speech. It was shocking, right? And the letter campaigns to all the companies that I was on boards of to get that terrorist off your board, like, it's just outrageous. And so I realized how much power a state has over a narrative, and I thought, if it looks like that, I'm going to design flexibility so I can be gone.
Well, so it falls on that. You need physical security before you have economic freedoms. Which jurisdiction internationally are you most bullish on? If you're looking at yourself.
So it's a moving target right now. I would say it's a moving target. I'm going to get a passport in Europe in Madeira, but even that is no foregone conclusion, right? So that's what I'm doing right now, and there's lots of others, but and I think you just have to retain flexibility. Yeah.
Rather than the government banning Bitcoin, what makes you want to do it?
Yeah,
KYC free Bitcoin seems like it was pretty important at that point, but I feel like a lot of people just buy their Bitcoin on other exchanges.
I think the same thing, but the same thing will happen. It'll move underground. Peer-to-peer markets will explode, and it won't stop it. So could they stop the exchanges? And that's one of the reasons I'm really excited about Fedi, because it removes that risk. So I think about all these things that are this technology that where the power is, and where the power is also a lot of these exchanges that sell all these shit coins to be able to create more power, which is a 6102 attack eventually, right? It will be, for sure. In fact, you could actually make an argument that the FTX was a psyop, right? I actually think it was. How did he come out of nowhere, right? And all of the people how did he get out of prison on bail for like with no assets? And where are the assets that he had? Like, if you looked deep enough into that, again, I don't want to wear the tinfoil hat, but you could make a strong argument that was a way to try to kill Bitcoin, and that was a way to go after the exchanges. And in counter moves, move. There's an entire ecosystem of developers and everything that know this is happening. Fedi and others, they're going to make that totally redundant, and it's near.
So it's on you to take your KYC Bitcoin and make it KYC.
Exactly, but again, even in that case, the KYC, that KYC idea, it is on you. But I would rather have my wealth in KYC Bitcoin in my personal storage, and then have the government come and chase me in another country, than have my wealth stuck in that country and me not being able to get out, right? I'll go to the country that could care less about an extradition to KYC Bitcoin, because good luck, right? What ends up happening in the existing system, we don't know this, but the most rich and powerful rise above all the laws. They can move anywhere. They're sitting outside of the laws, creating this, because most people on the planet don't have that access. This gives us that access. Anybody, that access. Yeah.
I work for an organization that offers trying to make healthcare more accessible in rural communities, small communities there. And I'm curious how you think something like Betty or Bitcoin could be utilized by those communities to help an organization do something like this, if it's not Bitcoin related.
Let me come back to you after this, and I'll try to think about. I'll try to think about specifically the problem. So, I'll give you an insight to a conversation I had with somebody very senior at Save the Children, yeah, a giant organization that tries to get money to people, and she couldn't understand Bitcoin, and even though she was their blockchain strategist, but that's exactly why, and so again, but meeting her where she was and everything else, and she had all these preconceptions about what it was, and I said to her, "What was your budget 10 years ago?" She told me. I said, "What's your budget now?" And the budget had increased by essentially tenfold in 10 years. I said, "Is your problem today worse or better than it was 10 years ago?" It's way worse. We can't keep up. Where do you get your money? Yeah, where do you get your money? Where do you get, and from FTX and all these, and government and everything else. And you get your money from the same thing creating the bigger problem. It's going to get worse. And all the donations, and that made it click. Because she was so much anxiety, because there's pain like crazy, and she actually wants to solve the pain. So she believes she's solving the pain while the budget and the pain's getting worse at the exact same rate the budget's going up, right? And then only from then could she say, "Huh, it is a system. What does a new system look like, and how could it solve the pain differently?" Yeah. Yeah, so the question was, have I met central bankers and the paradox and economists and everything else? Yes, all the time. And you'd be surprised at how many people inside some of the top institutions, when we think about, because we simplify narratives in our brain, and we say the institution, and we define the institution of every single person working in that organization. But just people are people. And there's a whole bunch of different people. There's a whole bunch of different people with different ideas in this room, and if you were outside this room, people would say all those crazy Bitcoiners, right? They're all in a same thing. We do the same thing to the existing system, and it doesn't look like that. Bank of England, somebody came up to me in Bedford and said, and very senior at the Bank of England, he said, "I've been a hardcore Bitcoiner a long time. You're one of my heroes." And he said, "I have to disclose how much Bitcoin I have all the time in this, and they know, and I have a whole bunch of friends inside the organization that are also Bitcoiners, and we know, and we're inside an organization that the organization itself is a construct of a whole bunch of things that could never understand it." And by the way, I could repeat that story. BlackRock people, all like crazy people that you would not know were Bitcoiners. I can't say, I never say. I have so many backroom conversations. I never talk about what that looks like. But what I can tell without their permission, what I can tell you is it's inevitably people are people, and there's an incentive for people to be able to move to this system, and more people are waking up every day. Zero. That's the point. Go and look at the reviews on, besides ad hominem attacks, there isn't one takedown of my thesis anywhere. Like I have not seen, you think after 4 years and 500,000 copies sold and how confusing this topic is, you would think there'd be all of this, that's actually why I typically talk in first principles, because now, somebody said to me a long time ago, I'm convinced that every newsroom has a picture of you in their newsroom, do not engage, right? because I'd have this talk to, happy to debate this, because like, how do you debate what you can see all over the world and you can see it, you've known all over the time? How can you debate that with, well, no, I think we shouldn't do that by printing more money? Like it's so illogical. But anyways, that's why this seems easy for me.
So I think there's like a growing sense, at least like in my generation, that something is broken in the economy. I have a friend who owns an apartment building.
You think? That's what we're talking about, by the way.
Are you saying that the lizard people that you're talking to also feel that?
So that's actually why I wouldn't say that.
Are you saying that people are at the higher end, they also have this something?
Okay, so you, me, and it's really hard to see the thing that is stopping you from success, because people won't tell you. So let's use Elizabeth with Warren in that example, right? So Elizabeth Warren, as an example, the printing of the money makes her constituents that love her poorer. It hurts them really badly, but they love her. And they will tell her how great she is, because she talks about some evil empire and all of these organizations. They're the bad ones, and I'm here to protect you. I'm going to protect you by printing more money to make them stronger, right? And me stronger. But if you actually attacked her and said, because everybody, or entire vortex of people that vote for her, love her for that thing. So would it be easier to believe that you're helping them, or rip down every belief you've ever had that made your success and said I was wrong the whole time? What would be easier? And so what you see is just human action. Just that. By the way, Elon Musk is the exact same thing. Exact same thing. Just a different version of that. Would it be easier to believe that you're the only one who can save free speech while you centralize it? Because everyone says you're a God king, or actually believe, or actually move to a Bitcoin standard that removes that power. What would be easier? And so it'd be easier to believe you're God king and you're the one here to save the earth, and your narcissism gets to you. So that's what. So, and if you see that in everyone else, it might be in you too. And so that I think that's the point. They're not lizard people. They're just but they're just incentive to not see it, right? Most people don't even know. They're completely blind. Yeah. So governments will get a lot smaller, and it's going to be competitive. And so I'm going to read you something from because I think this will be insightful. From a friend of mine. So Luke Groman was here last night for our AI chat, and I brought him here, and he sent me something this morning, because he saw the same talk. He saw the robots that are going to do all of this labor at less than $5 an hour in years, and now you're not just doing the ideas, you're actually doing all the physical goods, and so that's a $10 trillion opportunity in the US. So he sent me this morning. And by the way, this is, Luke, after we've talked about this. He's a friend, we talk about this all the time. And so it's how powerful your existing narrative is in your beliefs. And so he sent me, he goes, a year ago I warned China might win the fourth industrial revolution. I'm pondering the implications, because just today, BYD up their price. They launched an $11,000 EV. So that's 1/3 of the price of a Tesla in China. And so AI, big data, 5G factory automation might collapse manufacturing costs, and so China's going to win. And I wondered why he sent it to me. So I went back to him and I said, this is what I wrote about. I said, that being said, China has no way of winning this with their own debt problem, demographic problem, and a digital one, and a state-controlled apparatus. That is, no chance of winning unless the U.S. decides to fight China using China's strategy of state control of manipulation. So if you try to fight somebody using the same strategy and they're further along, they probably win. I said free markets are more innovative and efficient, and going to Bitcoin would be a death knell for China-Russia model and propel the U.S. forward. To me, that's why path matters. Luke talks about path matters at a much higher level than most talk about. So then he goes, and again, this is why it's so confusing from the existing system. He said, doesn't the AI robot angle fix the demographic problem? And I said, it does, but the second order effects of that design under the existing model of state control is a state must pay the worker who doesn't work, or a revolution, right? And so you can see, if you think through not just the first order effects, you think through the second order effects. In other words, and then a lot of people, oh, well, let's just tax the automation and not let prices fall, right? So i.e. taxes on robots and all the other stupid ideas that contribute to the remaining in the status quo versus reimagining what the new world looks like. I said, makes sense. And you go, yeah, I said, essentially, the state can redistribute it inefficiently and destroy the free market ideas and innovation in doing so, or allow the free market to do efficiently. Ultimately, that's our choices. That's every single nation's choice, and there will be choices, and that leans into the question that you just said, and it seems like a long way to that question, sorry, but it's important. What that means is different states are going to compete for you under different rules, and those different rules will determine the services that you want from the state, and you will happily pay for the services that match your objectives, and it'll constantly come down, and they'll be able to do more and more for less over time if they understand that. If they don't, they'll take it and they'll concentrate it, and you'll move. Yeah. I don't think citadels. I don't think citadels at all. I think that might be a first wave. People do that in the first wave, little communities. But I think over time this just transitions and this. If you own Bitcoin, you'll have more mobility. There's a cap. This should be known, right? Every nation is looking for great people with capital, right? There's a competitive all over the world for great people with capital. So if you're on Bitcoin and you're building the future and you have capital because you're Bitcoin, you're going to be open arms to a whole bunch of different places, and that's going to expand all over the world. Yeah.
PRTO talks about the shift from the information era to the knowledge sharing economy. What does that look like, and do you see anything like
So I think when you say the knowledge sharing economy, that's kind of what we're talking about right now. If you just think, so you used to be able to be paid. Who, show of hands, who saw that little video I put, the AI from the future? So not very many. So so I created because this message that I've been talking about for years seems hard to be able to deliver. So I said, I'm going to just use the AI tools to deliver my message. So I went to Midjourney, created an avatar, went to ChatGPT, created a script. Essentially, I had to trick the ChatGPT because it wouldn't predict. I had to ask it to create a story. But then, and I cheated a little. I adjusted a couple things to Bitcoin. But a lot of that story was written by ChatGPT. Then I took and I automated it to voice to text, and a different one, I strung it all together to create a video. That video took 15 minutes. A video probably a month ago would have taken $20,000 in an agency to come up with everything else. And it took 15 minutes, it was completely free, and I don't know, it had hundreds of thousands, maybe more than that, views. It went viral. It cost me nothing, right? So when you think about knowledge, what knowledge did I have to create that, right? It's all sitting there, and it's moving faster and faster. Now, if I can create that in 15 minutes now, and it did what it did, when an AI is creating that in 6 months, to be able to make you think something, and you don't know, you can't tell the difference if it's actually your friend or somebody else. It's why when you think about the communication channels that need to work on an exchange that tax that, right? That with apps or something like that, instead of centralize up, because that centralization will move up and up and up and create more and more power, and we'll just be pawns in that system and not even know it. So when Peter Thiel talks about the knowledge economy, right? I think he's missed where the whole thing goes to. Okay, let's end it there, and I'm going to be around for a while. I'm going to have some beers, and so look forward to talking.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you so much. That was great. I'm going to invite Dave up real quick. I was supposed to do this at the beginning, and I forgot. And I think Cole's around somewhere too. Oh, is he gone? Did you want to say something? He was going to, I think you guys had like a giveaway or something. So if you guys, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but okay. I'm going to get it, Dave, here.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. That was great. I'm Dave Bradley. I'm widely known as the strongest and best-looking Bitcoin entrepreneur in Canada. Thank you. Hi, Mags. So I got a couple things to shill. First and foremost is Bitcoin Well, where I am the Chief Revenue Officer. We have a new online platform we want everyone to try. It is right now the fastest and cheapest and safest way to buy Bitcoin in Canada. There's some cards over by the pizza boxes if you want to scan them to get a link. The second thing is we're putting on a conference in Calgary. It will be better than other conferences. It's going to be an amazing 2-day conference, July 4th and 5th. I would love to see all of you guys there. You can use the promo code VanCity for $60 off of a ticket. We also have bundled tickets with the Canadian Bitcoiners Conference if you are foolish enough to want to go to Toronto. And last but not least, probably the most important thing, my very good friend Matex is set up over here, creative director at Bull Bitcoin. He has a whole bunch of swag here. Now, I don't know, some of you may have noticed, certainly some of you did. He tweeted out challenge today, if you want a free t-shirt, Bull Bitcoin or a Matex t-shirt like I've got here, you have to trade him a hand physical drawing of a Bitcoin bull. So it could be drawn in lipstick on a pizza box, but if you want to get one, they're right there. There's all kinds of free stuff. He's got stickers and whatnot as well over there, as well as some amazing art for sale. So that is everything I have to shill. And I'll shill CoinOS since they're gone. You should, everyone asking about merchant services, go to CoinOS, talk to them. Thanks.
Yeah.